Hello, and welcome to this special extended edition of English in Fluency. I am your host, Alex, and I am so glad you have decided to join me today for a long-form listening session. Have you ever felt like English conversation is moving just a little too fast for you to catch every single word? You are not alone in that feeling, because almost every learner I have met tells me that listening is the hardest skill to master. But today, we are going to change that dynamic together. We are going to stop worrying about catching every single word and start focusing on the bigger picture, improving your accuracy naturally and without any pressure. Today is not about tests or grades. It is about relaxation and letting the language flow into your mind, like a favorite song. If you enjoy this approach to learning, please make sure to subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss a moment of progress. And let's begin our journey into a story that will help you tune your ears to the natural rhythm of English. To start, I want you to close your eyes if you can, or just relax your gaze and imagine a rainy Tuesday afternoon in a quiet city. We are going to follow a character named Elena. Elena is an architect who has been working hard all morning, staring at blueprints and computer screens, and she needs a break. The rain is tapping gently against the window of her office, a soft rhythmic sound that makes the world feel cozy and slow. She decides to leave her desk and walk down the street to her favorite coffee shop, a small place called the Rusty Anchor. I want you to listen carefully to the description of the scene as Elena steps outside. She opens her blue umbrella and steps onto the wet pavement, avoiding the puddles that have formed near the curb. The air smells like rain and wet concrete, a scent that is very common in the city during autumn. As she walks, she pulls her coat tighter around her because the wind is a little chilly today. Can you picture her? She is walking with purpose, but she is also looking forward to a warm drink. Now, Elena arrives at the Rusty Anchor and pushes the heavy wooden door open. A small bell above the door jingles, announcing her arrival. Inside, the air is warm and smells rich with the aroma of roasted coffee beans and sweet cinnamon pastries. The noise of the city fades away, replaced by the soft hum of an espresso machine and quiet jazz music playing in the background. Behind the counter stands Julian, the owner of the cafe. Julian is a friendly man in his 40s, with a kind smile and a neatly trimmed beard. He knows most of his customers by name, which makes the cafe feel like a second home to people like Elena. Listen to how they greet each other. Julian looks up from wiping the counter and smiles when he sees her. He says, "Hello, Elena. It is good to see you. I was wondering if you would brave the rain today." Elena shakes her umbrella and places it in the stand by the door before walking to the counter. She smiles back and says, "Hi, Julian. I almost stayed inside, but I really needed a break from my computer screen." Notice how simple that exchange was. They are not using complicated words, but they are connecting with each other. Julian is acknowledging the weather, and Elena is explaining why she is there. This is a key part of B1 listening, which is understanding the context. Now, let's listen to them order. Julian asks her if she wants the usual today. Elena pauses for a moment, looking at the menu board on the wall, and then she shakes her head. She tells him that actually, today she feels like having something different because she is cold. She asks if he has any hot chocolate. Julian nods enthusiastically and says, "Absolutely. We make the best hot chocolate in the city. Do you want whipped cream on top? Elena laughs softly and says, Yes, please. I think I deserve a treat today. Julian starts making the drink, and the sound of milk steaming fills the silence between them. While he works, he asks her how the new building project is going. Elena sighs, but it is a happy sigh, and says it is going well, but it is very detailed work, which is why she needed to step away for a few minutes. I want you to pause and think about what you just heard. Did you catch the change in the order? Elena usually drinks coffee, but today she chose hot chocolate because of the cold weather. Understanding these small shifts is what improves your listening accuracy. You are not just listening for words like coffee or milk, you are listening for the reason behind the choice. Elena wanted comfort. Julian offered whipped cream. These details paint a picture. Now, Julian hands her the large mug of hot chocolate. He tells her to be careful because it is very hot. Elena takes the mug with both hands, feeling the heat warm her frozen fingers. She thanks him and pays for her drink, leaving a few coins in the tip jar. She walks over to a comfortable armchair near the window, where she can watch the rain falling on the street outside. She takes a sip and smiles, feeling the stress of the morning melt away. As she sits there, she takes a notebook out of her bag. She is not working on architecture now. She is just sketching the people in the cafe. There is a student in the corner typing on a laptop, and an older couple sharing a slice of lemon cake. Elena sketches the outline of the coffee machine and the curve of the counter. This moment of peace is important for her. In English, when we describe scenes like this, we often use present continuous verbs to show actions happening right now. She is sitting. She is drinking. She is sketching. Try to hear those ing sounds as I describe her. The rain is still falling, but it looks beautiful from the inside. Elena looks at her watch and realizes she has about 15 minutes before she needs to go back to the office. She decides to enjoy every second of it. Suddenly, the door opens again, and a gust of cold wind blows in. A woman enters in a rush, looking a bit frazzled. This is a new character, maybe a friend of Elena's. Her name is Sarah. Sarah sees Elena, and her face lights up with relief. She walks over quickly, her wet coat dripping slightly on the floor. Sarah says, Elena, I am so glad I found you. I went to your office, but the receptionist said you were out. Elena looks surprised and puts her pen down. She asks Sarah what is wrong and if everything is okay. Sarah takes a deep breath and says, Yes, everything is fine, but I have some exciting news to tell you and I could not wait until this evening. Elena gestures to the empty chair opposite her and tells Sarah to sit down. Sarah sits and leans in close, lowering her voice as if she is sharing a secret. She tells Elena that she finally got the promotion she has been working toward for 2 years. Elena gasps and reaches across the table to squeeze Sarah's hand. She says, That is amazing news. Congratulations, Sarah. You worked so hard for this. Sarah is beaming, her smile wide and genuine. She says, Thanks. I am still in shock. I have to lead the new marketing team starting next Monday. Julian, who was cleaning a nearby table, overhears the good news. He walks over and says, Congratulations. That sounds like a reason to celebrate. Can I get you a coffee on the house? Sarah looks up at Julian and says, That would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Julian. I will have a cappuccino, please. Julian nods and goes back to the counter. This interaction shows us how English creates a community atmosphere. The conversation flowed from worry to excitement to celebration. Did you notice how the tone of voice changed? Sarah was rushed and breathless at first, then excited and happy. Elena was calm, then surprised and supportive. Listening to the emotion is just as important as listening to the vocabulary. As they sit together, Sarah and Elena start talking about the future. Sarah talks about her new responsibilities and how she is a little nervous about managing people. Elena reassures her, telling her that she is a natural leader and that everyone likes her. They talk for another 10 minutes until Elena looks at her watch again. She groans playfully and says she really has to get back to work now, or she will be in trouble. They both stand up and put on their coats. Elena picks up her umbrella, and Sarah grabs her bag. They wave goodbye to Julian, who waves back from the espresso machine. As they step back out into the rain, the world feels a little brighter, even though the sky is still gray. Elena feels refreshed, not just because of the hot chocolate, but because of the connection with her friend. We are going to challenge your listening accuracy a little more now by moving into a situation that is new and slightly unpredictable. This is often where B1 learners feel the most pressure, but remember, our goal today is progress without pressure. We are going to follow a new character named Sophie. Sophie is a travel photographer who has just arrived in a coastal town called Marinos. She has never been here before, and she does not know anyone. This is a classic travel situation where you have to rely on your listening skills to solve problems and get where you need to go. I want you to imagine the sound of seagulls calling in the sky and the noise of a busy market square. Sophie steps off a bus, carrying a large backpack and a camera bag. She looks around, feeling a mix of excitement and confusion. Sophie pulls a folded map out of her pocket, but the wind keeps blowing it around, making it hard to read. She is looking for her hotel, which is called the Blue Horizon. She thinks she knows the way, but the streets in Marinos are narrow and winding, like a maze. She decides she needs to ask for help. This is a brave moment. Many learners are afraid to speak to strangers because they fear they won't understand the answer. But Sophie takes a deep breath and approaches a fruit vendor who is arranging oranges on a stall. The vendor is an older man with a flat cap and a friendly face. Sophie says, "Excuse me, good afternoon. I am a little lost." The vendor stops what he is doing and smiles at her. He says, "Good afternoon, miss. Where are you trying to go?" Sophie shows him the name on her phone and says, "I am looking for the Blue Horizon Hotel. Do you know where it is? Now, listen carefully to the directions, because this is where it gets tricky." The vendor points to his left and says, "Oh yes, that is not far. You need to go straight down this street until you see a bakery with a yellow awning." Sophie nods, visualizing a yellow awning. The vendor continues, saying at the bakery, "You must turn right, not left, and then walk up the hill past the fountain." Sophie repeats the key points to check her understanding. She says, "Okay, so straight to the bakery, turn right, then up the hill past the fountain." The vendor nods and adds one more detail. He says exactly. "And the hotel is at the very top of the hill. It has a blue door. You cannot miss it." Sophie thanks him warmly and adjusts her backpack. She starts walking in the direction he pointed. This strategy of repeating the information back is a powerful tool for you. It confirms that you heard correctly and gives your brain a second chance to process the English. As Sophie walks, she pays attention to the sights and sounds. She sees the bakery with the yellow awning just like the man said. The smell of fresh bread is delicious, and for a moment she wants to stop, but she keeps going. She turns right and sees the hill. It looks quite steep. She sighs, knowing her bag is heavy, but she starts climbing. Halfway up the hill, she sees the stone fountain with water splashing into a basin. She knows she is on the right track. This gives her confidence. However, when she gets to the top of the hill, she is confused. There are 3 buildings, and none of them seem to have a blue door. She feels a moment of panic. Did she misunderstand? Did she miss a turn? She stands there, looking left and right. This is a normal part of the learning journey. Sometimes, even when you listen well, reality looks different than you expected. She sees a woman walking a small dog nearby. Sophie decides to ask for clarification. She walks over and says, "Excuse me, I was told the Blue Horizon Hotel is here, but I do not see a blue door." The woman smiles and points to a building that is covered in ivy. She says, "Oh, they painted the door green last week. That is the hotel right there." Sophie laughs with relief. She says, "Thank you so much. I was looking for blue, and I was so confused." The woman laughs too and says, "Do not worry. They change things around here all the time. Enjoy your stay." This is a perfect example of why flexibility is important. Sophie had a specific image in her head, but the reality changed. By asking a simple follow-up question, she solved the problem instantly. She walks to the green door, sees the small sign that says Blue Horizon, and enters the lobby. Inside the hotel, the atmosphere is cool and quiet. The receptionist is a young man named Leo. He is typing on a computer and looks up when Sophie enters. He says, "Welcome to the Blue Horizon. Do you have a reservation?" Sophie nods and says yes. The name is Sophie Miller. Leo types for a moment and then frowns slightly. He says, "I am sorry. I do not see a reservation for Miller. Did you book it online?" Sophie feels her heart beat a little faster. Misunderstandings about reservations can be stressful. She says, "Yes, I booked it 2 weeks ago through a travel site. I have the confirmation number here on my phone." She scrolls through her emails and shows him the screen. Leo looks at the number and types it in. His face clears, and he says, "Ah, I see what happened. The system spelled your name with an F instead of a PH, so it was filed under the wrong letter." Sophie breathes a sigh of relief. She says, "Oh, that happens sometimes. I am just glad you found it." Leo smiles apologetically and says, "I am very sorry for the scare. To make up for it, I can upgrade you to a room with a sea view." Sophie's eyes widen. She says, "Really? That would be amazing. Thank you." Leo hands her a key card and gives her instructions. He says, "Your room is number 304. Take the elevator to the 3rd floor. Turn left. And it is the last door at the end of the hall. Breakfast is served from 7 to 10 in the dining room downstairs." Sophie listens intently. "Room 304. 3rd floor. Turn left. Breakfast 7 to 10. She takes the key and thanks him again. She walks to the elevator, feeling proud of herself. She navigated a new city, asked for directions, solved a confusion about the door color, and handled a booking error, all in English. Now, we are going to focus on something deeper, listening for opinions, feelings, and social connection. This is often the bridge between B1 and B2 levels, where you stop translating every word and start understanding the personality of the speaker. We are going to bring our characters together in a way. Imagine that it is evening time now. The sun has set, and the city lights are twinkling. We are going to a community art gallery opening. This is a place where people stand around, hold drinks, and talk about life, art, and their feelings. The background noise is a soft murmur of many conversations happening at once, known as the cocktail party effect. It can be tricky, but we will focus on one clear conversation. Elena, from our first story, is here. She loves art because she is an architect. Surprisingly, she runs into Sophie, the traveler. They do not know each other yet, but they are standing in front of the same large painting. The painting shows a stormy ocean with a small boat. Elena tilts her head and looks at it closely. Sophie is standing next to her, holding a glass of sparkling water. Sophie speaks first. She says that is a powerful image, isn't it? Elena turns to look at her and smiles. She says yes, it is. The waves look so dangerous, but the boat looks very steady. I think it represents resilience. Sophie nods in agreement. She says I was thinking the same thing. It reminds me of my travels. Sometimes you feel lost in a storm, but you just have to keep floating. Elena asks her where she has traveled recently. Sophie replies, I just came back from Marinos, a beautiful coastal town. The ocean looked just like this, but much calmer. They introduce themselves. Elena says, I am Elena, by the way. Sophie says, nice to meet you. I am Sophie. They shake hands. This introduction is smooth and natural. Now, listen to how the topic deepens. Elena asks Sophie what she does for a living. Sophie explains that she is a photographer. She says, I try to capture moments that people might miss, like the way light hits a building or the expression on a stranger's face. Elena's eyes light up. She says, that is fascinating. I am an architect, so I am always looking at structure and lines. But I think we both look for beauty in the world, just in different ways. Sophie agrees. She says exactly, architecture is like art, you can live inside. This is a beautiful sentence. It shows a high level of understanding and appreciation. They are not just exchanging facts, they are sharing a philosophy. As they talk, a waiter walks by with a tray of appetizers. Elena takes a small spinach tart, and Sophie declines, saying she is saving her appetite for dinner. Elena asks, do you have plans for dinner? Sophie admits that she does not. She was planning to just find a quiet place nearby. Elena feels a spark of spontaneity. She says, well, my friend Sarah is meeting me here in 10 minutes, and we were going to go to a great Italian restaurant around the corner. Would you like to join us? Sophie looks surprised, but pleased. She says, are you sure? I would not want to intrude on your evening. Elena shakes her head and says not at all. Sarah loves meeting new people, and I would love to hear more about your photography. Sophie smiles and says, then I would love to come. Thank you. That is very kind of you. Just then, Sarah arrives. She looks elegant in a black dress, looking very happy about her promotion. Elena introduces them. She says, Sarah, this is Sophie. She is a photographer, and she is going to join us for dinner. Sarah extends her hand and says, wonderful. It is lovely to meet you, Sophie. I am starving, so I hope you like pasta. Sophie laughs and says, I love pasta. It is my favorite. The three women leave the gallery together, walking out into the cool evening air. They walk down the sidewalk, their heels clicking on the pavement. The conversation flows easily between them. They talk about the art they saw, the weather, and their jobs. There is no pressure to be perfect. They interrupt each other gently. They laugh, and they ask questions when they don't hear something clearly because of the street noise. At the restaurant, they sit at a round table with a candle in the middle. The waiter brings menus. Sarah asks Sophie, "So, what is the most interesting place you have ever visited?" Sophie thinks for a moment and says, "That is a hard question, but I think I loved Japan the most. The mix of tradition and modern technology was incredible." Sarah nods and says, "I have always wanted to go there." Elena adds, "I would love to see the architecture in Tokyo." They order their food, and the conversation shifts to their personal lives. Sarah talks about her nervousness regarding her new team. Sophie listens and offers advice from her travels. She says, "When I am in a new place and I am nervous, I just try to listen more than I speak. Maybe that would help with your new team." Sarah looks thoughtful and says, "That is really good advice. Thank you, Sophie." This moment at the dinner table represents the ultimate goal of learning English. It is not about passing a test. It is about connection. It is about three strangers becoming friends over a meal, sharing wisdom and supporting each other. Elena, who started her day tired and needing coffee, is now energized by good company. Sophie, who was a stranger in the city, has found new friends. Sarah, who was anxious about her job, has found support. All of this happened through English. Every word they listened to and understood built a bridge between them. As you listen to their story, realize that you are also building a bridge. You are building a bridge to your own future, where you can have conversations like this. Let us fast forward to the following Monday. If you remember, Sarah had just received a big promotion to lead the marketing team. Today is the first day of her new role, and she is standing outside the meeting room door. I want you to visualize the office. It is a modern building with glass walls and bright lights. The carpet is gray and soft, muffling the sound of footsteps. Sarah is wearing her favorite blue blazer because it makes her feel confident. She is holding a notebook and a pen, but her hands are shaking just a little bit. She takes a deep breath, inhaling the scent of coffee and printer paper that fills the air. This is a big moment for her. Leading a meeting is very different from just attending one. She pushes the door open and walks inside. Sitting around the large white oval table are her colleagues. There is Mark, who has messy hair and is typing loudly on his laptop. And there is Lisa, who is organizing a stack of colorful papers. They both look up and smile as Sarah enters. Sarah smiles back and says, "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on time." She walks to the head of the table and places her notebook down. She decides to start with a casual tone to make everyone feel relaxed. She asks Mark how his weekend was. Mark stops typing and leans back in his chair. He says it was great, actually. I went hiking with my dog and the weather was perfect. How about you, Sarah? Sarah replies that she had a lovely dinner with some friends, including an architect and a photographer. Notice how this small talk builds a bridge before business begins. It is an essential skill in English culture. Now, the meeting officially starts. Sarah clears her throat gently and says, "Okay, let's look at the plan for the summer campaign. We need to decide on the main color theme today. This is where listening can get tricky, because people might disagree." Lisa raises her hand and says, "I really think we should use green. It represents nature and health, which fits our new product." Mark shakes his head immediately. He says, "I disagree, Lisa. Green is too quiet. We need something bold like red or orange to grab attention." Sarah listens to both of them. She does not panic. She acts as a mediator. She says, "Thank you both. I see your points." Lisa, you want a natural feel. Mark, you want excitement. Is there a way we can combine these ideas? This is a wonderful phrase for you to learn. Is there a way we can combine these ideas? It shows leadership. Mark thinks for a moment and taps his pen on the table. He says, "Well, maybe we could use a bright, energetic green, like a lime green instead of a dark forest green." Lisa nods slowly and says, "Actually, that could work. It would be fresh, but also eye-catching." Sarah smiles, feeling a wave of relief. She says, "That sounds like a fantastic compromise. Let's write that down as our primary option." As the meeting continues, Sarah feels her nervousness fading away. She realizes that she does not need to have all the answers herself. She just needs to listen to her team and guide the conversation. After the meeting ends, Sarah stays behind to erase the whiteboard. The room is quiet again. She looks out the window at the city skyline. She feels proud. She successfully managed a disagreement in English. She wipes the blue marker ink off the board, and as she does, her phone buzzes in her pocket. It is a message from Elena. The message says, "Hope the first meeting went well. Thinking of you." Sarah types back a quick reply, saying it went better than expected. "Thank you for the support." This connection between her work life and her personal life makes her feel balanced. She gathers her things and walks out of the room, ready for the rest of the day. While Sarah is working hard in the office, let us shift our attention to Julian, the owner of the cafe. Usually, we see Julian serving coffee, but today is his day off, and he is dealing with a very common household problem. We are going to his apartment, which is located just a few blocks away from the cafe. It is a cozy place full of books and plants. However, today it is not peaceful. Julian is standing in his kitchen, looking at his sink with a worried expression. There is water dripping from the pipe underneath the sink. Drip, drip, drip. It is a slow leak, but it has created a puddle on the floor. Julian sighs and grabs a towel to wipe it up, but he knows he cannot fix this himself. He needs to call a professional. He picks up his phone and dials the number for a local plumber. Listening to phone conversations is excellent practice because you cannot see the other person's face. You have to rely entirely on the voice. The phone rings 3 times before someone answers. A deep voice says, "Hello, City Plumbing. This is David speaking." Julian says, "Hello, David. My name is Julian. I have a bit of an emergency at my apartment. My kitchen sink is leaking." David sounds calm and professional. He asks Julian to describe the leak. He says, "Is the water coming from the tap or from the pipe underneath?" Julian crouches down to look. He says, "It is definitely coming from the pipe, right where it connects to the wall." David says, "Okay, I understand. It sounds like a worn-out washer or a loose connection. I can come by and take a look." Julian asks the most important question. "When can you come?" David pauses, and Julian can hear the sound of pages turning, likely a schedule book. David says, "I am quite busy today, but I have an opening at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Does that work for you?" Julian looks at his watch. It is currently noon. He says, "Yes, 3 o'clock is perfect. I will be here." David then adds, "Let me tell you about the rates. There is a call-out fee of $50, plus the cost of any parts I need to use." Julian says that is fine. I just want it fixed before it ruins my floor. They confirm the address, and Julian hangs up. Now, Julian has 3 hours to wait. He decides not to waste the time. He makes himself a cup of tea, careful not to use the broken sink, and sits in his living room chair. He picks up a guitar that is leaning against the wall. We did not know this about Julian before, but he loves to play music. He strums a few chords gently. The music fills the apartment, covering the sound of the dripping water. This is a moment of rest for him. Even when things go wrong, like a broken pipe, we can find ways to relax. At exactly 3 o'clock, the doorbell rings. Julian puts the guitar down and opens the door. David the plumber is standing there, wearing blue overalls and carrying a heavy red toolbox. David is a cheerful man with a mustache. He wipes his feet on the mat and says, "Good afternoon. Show me the patient." Julian laughs at the joke, calling the sink a patient like a doctor would. He leads David to the kitchen. David lies on his back and slides under the sink with a flashlight. He hums a tune while he works. After a few minutes, he slides back out and sits up. He says, "Well, the good news is that the pipe is fine, but the rubber seal has completely rotted away. I have a spare one in my truck." Julian feels relieved. He asks, "How long will it take to fix?" David says, "Oh, only about 20 minutes." Julian watches as David goes to the truck, comes back with a small black rubber ring, and fixes the leak. When he is finished, David turns on the tap. The water flows smoothly, and there are no drips underneath. Julian smiles and says, "Fantastic job. Thank you so much." He pays David, and they shake hands. As David leaves, Julian feels a sense of accomplishment. Dealing with home repairs involves specific vocabulary: leak, pipe, seal, rate, call-out fee, but because he remained calm and asked clear questions, the problem was solved quickly. He grabs a mop to clean the floor one last time, happy that his home is back in order. We have seen Sarah succeed at work, and Julian manage his home. Now, let's rejoin Sophie, the photographer, and Elena, the architect. They are meeting up a few days after their dinner party. They decided to meet in a location that is inspiring for both of them: the City Botanical Gardens. I want you to imagine a vast green park in the middle of the city. It is a sunny Wednesday afternoon. There are large glass greenhouses filled with tropical plants, and wide paths lined with colorful flowers. The air smells sweet, like jasmine and damp earth. Sophie arrives first. She has her camera around her neck, as always. She is taking close-up photos of a purple orchid when she hears her name. "Sophie!" She turns around and sees Elena walking towards her, waving. Elena is wearing a casual trench coat and holding 2 paper cups. She reaches Sophie and hands her one. She says, "I brought you a chai latte. I remembered you said you liked spicy tea." Sophie is touched by this gesture. She says, "Elena, that is so thoughtful. Thank you. I love chai." They start walking slowly along the path, their feet crunching on the fine gravel. Elena asks, "So, have you taken any good photos today?" Sophie nods enthusiastically. She says, "Yes, the light is incredible today. I found a spider web covered in dewdrops near the entrance. It looked like a necklace made of diamonds." Elena smiles and says, "You have such a poetic way of seeing things. I would probably just walk right past it." Sophie laughs and says, "Well, that is why I want to talk to you. I have an idea." Elena looks curious. She takes a sip of her drink and asks, "What is your idea?" Sophie stops walking and turns to face her. She says, "I was thinking about organizing a photography walk for beginners." Sophie continues explaining. She says, "I want to teach people how to see the beauty in their own city. But I am not very good at the organizing part. I am better at the creative part. Since you are an architect and you are so organized, I was wondering if you would help me plan the route." Elena's eyes widen with excitement. She says, "Sophie, I would love to do that. I know so many interesting buildings that people usually ignore. They could make a perfect route." They walk over to a wooden bench near a pond and sit down. Elena takes a small notebook out of her bag, she always carries one, and opens it to a fresh page. Elena says, "Okay, let's brainstorm. When do you want to do this?" Sophie looks at the sky and says, "Maybe in 2 weeks? That gives us time to advertise it." Elena writes 2 weeks at the top of the page. She asks, who is the target audience? Sophie says, beginners. People who maybe just use their phones but want to take better pictures. Elena writes, beginners/phone cameras. Then they start discussing the route. Elena suggests starting at the old library because it has beautiful stone columns. Sophie agrees and says yes, and the shadows there in the morning are amazing. Then Elena suggests walking through the market district to capture the colors of the fruit and the people. Sophie says perfect. That adds a human element to the photos. This conversation is a great example of collaboration. They are building on each other's ideas. They use phrases like, "What about?" "That is a good point," and "Maybe we could." As they plan, a duck waddles up to their bench, looking for food. Sophie quietly lifts her camera and snaps a picture of the duck. The shutter makes a soft clicking sound. Elena laughs and says he wants to be part of the workshop too. They decide to end the photography walk at Julian's Cafe. Elena says it would be the perfect place to finish. Everyone can sit down, have a coffee, and share their photos. Sophie claps her hands together and says that is brilliant. Julian would love that, and it brings business to the cafe. They spend another hour on the bench, finalizing the details. They decide to create a flyer to put up in local shops. Elena says she can design the flyer on her computer because she has design software for her architecture work. Sophie feels a wave of gratitude. She says, "I really appreciate this, Elena. I could not have done it without you." Elena shakes her head and says honestly, "This is fun for me. It is nice to work on a project that is not a stressful building deadline." The sun begins to dip lower in the sky, turning the light golden. They stand up, feeling productive and happy. They have created something new together. As they walk back towards the park exit, they talk about inviting Sarah. Elena says Sarah would be great at helping us spread the word. She is a marketing expert now, after all. Sophie laughs and says, "Oh my goodness, you are right. We have the perfect team. A photographer, an architect, and a marketer. And a cafe owner to host us. It feels like destiny." They reach the gate of the park and hug goodbye. Elena heads towards the subway station, and Sophie stays behind to take a few more photos of the sunset. She feels connected to the city in a way she never has before. She is no longer just a traveler passing through. She is becoming part of the community. It is Friday evening, the end of the week. The work is done, the leaks are fixed, and the plans are made. We are going to Julian's Cafe, the Rusty Anchor, where the atmosphere is lively and warm. It is raining outside again, a heavy downpour that drums against the windows, but inside it is dry and cheerful. The cafe is full of people seeking shelter and comfort. Julian is behind the counter, working quickly. The espresso machine is hissing steam, and cups clatter against saucers. He looks tired, but happy. He sees the door open, and in walk Sarah, Elena, and Sophie, all together. They are shaking their umbrellas and laughing as they wipe water off their coats. Julian waves a towel at them and calls out, "Welcome to the dry zone." They find a large table in the corner, near the bookshelf. They sit down, sighing with relief to be out of the rain. Julian walks over to take their order. He looks at Sarah and says, "You look like a woman who survived her first week as a boss." Sarah grins and says barely, "Julian, barely. I need the biggest cappuccino you have." Julian laughs and writes it down. He looks at Elena and asks, "How is the architecture world?" Elena smiles and says, "Busy. But Sophie and I have a proposition for you." Julian raises an eyebrow playfully and asks, "Oh? A proposition? This sounds mysterious." Sophie leans forward and explains the idea of the photography walk ending at his cafe. She says we might bring about 10 or 15 people here in 2 weeks. Is that okay? Julian's face lights up. He says, "Are you kidding? That sounds fantastic. I can reserve the big table in the back for you. I can even bake some special cookies for the group." Sophie beams and says, "That would be amazing. Thank you, Julian." He finishes taking their orders, a tea for Elena and a hot chocolate for Sophie, and goes back to the counter. The 3 women settle into their chairs. The conversation at the table is fast and happy. This is the social glue of English, the chat that happens between friends. Sarah tells them a funny story about her meeting. She says you won't believe it, but after the meeting, Mark and Lisa went to lunch together to discuss the color green. I think they are friends now. Elena laughs and says, "See? You are a peacemaker, Sarah." Sophie shows them the draft of the flyer on her phone. She asks, "What do you think of the font? Is it too small?" Sarah puts on her marketing glasses, metaphorically. She says the image is beautiful, but you should make the date bigger and bolder so people can see it from a distance. Sophie nods and says, "Good tip. I will change that." Then, the conversation shifts to a deeper topic. Elena looks out the window at the rain and says, "You know, a few months ago, I was feeling very lonely in this city. I went to work, came home, and that was it. But now, sitting here with you all, I feel so much better. It is strange how life changes." Sophie nods in agreement. She says traveling is wonderful, but it can be lonely too. Finding friends who share your interests is a rare gift. Sarah adds, "And having a place like this cafe makes a difference too, doesn't it? It is like a second living room." Julian arrives with the drinks. He places the cappuccino, the tea, and the hot chocolate on the table. He also puts down a plate of cinnamon cookies. He says on the house, for the planning committee. He pulls up a chair and sits with them for a moment, because the rush has quieted down. He says, "Listening to you guys makes me happy. I opened this place hoping it would bring people together, and it is actually working." They all raise their mugs for a toast. Sarah says to friendship. Elena says to creativity. Sophie says, and to new adventures. They clink their cups together gently. For the next hour, they just talk. They talk about movies they have seen, books they are reading, and their plans for the weekend. The language they use is natural and idiomatic. They use phrases like, "No way," "I totally agree," "That reminds me of," and "Let me guess." They interrupt each other with laughter. They ask for clarification when the cafe gets noisy. This is the reality of fluency. It is not about perfect grammar. It is about the flow of connection. As the evening winds down, the rain stops. The streets outside are wet and shiny, reflecting the streetlights like a mirror. The friends stand up and put on their coats. They pay for their drinks. Even though Julian tries to refuse, they insist on tipping him well. They walk to the door together. Julian says, "See you all soon. Good luck with the flyer." They wave and step out into the fresh, cool night air. The city feels peaceful now. They walk to the corner where they have to go their separate ways. It is Saturday morning, the day of the photography walk. The time is 8 o'clock in the morning. Sarah is the first one awake. Even though it is the weekend, she is full of energy because she feels responsible for the success of the event. She is in her apartment, standing in front of a full-length mirror. She is trying to decide what to wear. She wants to look professional, but also approachable. She chooses a comfortable pair of jeans and a bright yellow raincoat, just in case the weather turns bad. She grabs a heavy tote bag from her table. Inside the bag are the flyers she printed, a sign-up sheet, and a box of name tags. Sarah loves organization. She picks up a red marker and checks her list one last time. Flyers? Check. Pens? Check. A positive attitude? Check. She locks her door and heads out into the cool morning air. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Sophie is feeling a little bit nervous. She is sitting on the floor of her hotel room, surrounded by camera equipment. She has her main camera, a backup camera, 3 different lenses, and several memory cards. She picks up a lens and wipes it gently with a microfiber cloth. She holds it up to the light to make sure there is no dust on the glass. Sophie is an expert photographer, but teaching other people is new for her. She worries that she might forget what to say, or that people might find her instructions too difficult. She takes a deep breath and remembers Elena's advice from the park. Just be yourself. She packs her bag slowly, double-checking that her batteries are fully charged. The battery indicator shows a solid green light, which gives her a small boost of confidence. She zips up her bag, puts on her favorite scarf, and heads out to meet the others. The meeting point for the walk is the steps of the Old City Library. It is a magnificent building with tall stone columns and wide stairs. Elena is already there. As an architect, she loves this building. She is standing by one of the stone lions that guard the entrance, looking at the sky. The sky is a mix of blue patches and fluffy white clouds. It is good light for photography because it is not too harsh. Elena sees Sarah approaching in her yellow raincoat. They wave at each other. Sarah walks up the steps and gives Elena a hug. She says, "Good morning. The weather looks perfect, doesn't it?" Elena smiles and says, "Yes. I was checking the forecast all night. But I think we are going to be lucky today." Sophie arrives a moment later, looking a bit weighed down by her camera bag but smiling. The 3 friends stand together, forming a welcoming committee. Slowly, people start to arrive. This is the moment they were waiting for. The first person to arrive is a young university student named Mia. She is shy and is holding just a smartphone. She asks quietly, "Is this the photography walk?" Sarah smiles warmly and says, "Yes, it is. Welcome, Mia. We are so glad you came." She hands Mia a name tag and a pen. Next, an older gentleman arrives. His name is Arthur. He is wearing a tweed cap and carrying a very old vintage film camera. He walks slowly, but with a sparkle in his eye. He says, "I hope I am not too old for this new adventure." Sophie steps forward and says, "Absolutely not, Arthur. That camera looks amazing. I cannot wait to see what you capture with it." Slowly, the group grows. There are about 12 people in total. There is a young couple, a woman walking her dog, and a man who says he just bought his camera yesterday. Sophie clears her throat and steps to the center of the circle. Everyone goes quiet. This is her moment to lead. She speaks clearly and calmly. She says, "Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sophie, and this is Elena and Sarah. Today is not about being perfect technically. It is about seeing the world differently. We are going to walk through the city and look for three things: lines, shadows, and colors. Elena will tell us a little bit about the buildings, and I will help you frame your shots. Does that sound good?" The group nods and smiles. Someone says, "Sounds great." Sarah claps her hands and says, "All right, everyone, let's start walking." The group begins to move down the wide steps, chatting excitedly. The atmosphere is friendly and open. The first stop is right there at the library. Elena points to the tall columns. She says, "Notice how the columns create a repeating pattern. If you stand at the side and look down the line, it creates a sense of depth." Sophie jumps in and adds exactly. Try to get low to the ground and shoot upwards. It will make the building look powerful. The participants start moving around. Mia crouches down with her phone. Arthur adjusts the focus on his old camera. The sound of shutters clicking fills the air. Click, click, click. Sophie moves from person to person. She sees the man who bought his camera yesterday looking confused. She walks over to him gently. She says, "Hi, let me help you with that." She shows him how to hold the camera steady so his pictures won't be blurry. He smiles and says, "Oh, that is much better. Thank you." This interaction shows the core of the event: support and learning. After 20 minutes at the library, the group moves on. They walk down a narrow cobblestone street. Elena stops them in front of an old brick building covered in ivy. She says this building is over 100 years old. Look at the contrast between the red bricks and the green leaves. Sophie encourages everyone to come closer. She says, "Do not just take a picture of the whole wall. Look for the details. Look for a single leaf curling around a brick. This is called macro photography." The group gets quiet again as they focus intensely. Sarah stands at the back, taking pictures of the people taking pictures. She wants to document the event for social media. She sees Arthur showing Mia how his film camera works. Mia looks fascinated. Sarah thinks to herself that this is exactly what they hoped for: generations connecting through art. As they walk towards the market district, the sun comes out fully. The light hits the puddles on the ground, creating reflections. Sophie stops and points at a large puddle. She says, "Look down. You can see the reflection of the sky and the buildings in the water. Try taking a photo of the reflection instead of the reality." This is a difficult concept for some, but they try it. The young couple laughs as they try to get the right angle without getting their shoes wet. The mood is light and playful. They are not just walking, they are exploring. They are discovering beauty in ordinary things like puddles and brick walls. This part of the story reminds us that English, like photography, is about perspective. It is about looking at the world and finding a way to describe it or capture it. The group has been walking for about an hour now. They have explored the library and the old streets, and now they are arriving at the bustling market square. This is a very different environment. It is noisy, colorful, and chaotic. There are stalls selling fruit, vegetables, flowers, and handmade crafts. The air smells of fresh oranges and baking bread. For a photographer, this is a paradise but it can also be overwhelming. Sophie gathers everyone close to a fountain in the middle of the square so they can hear her over the noise of the crowd. Sophie raises her voice slightly and says, "Okay, everyone, this is a challenge. The market is full of movement. I want you to try to capture a candid moment. A candid moment means a natural moment, where the person does not know you are taking their photo. Maybe it is a vendor handing an apple to a child, or two friends laughing. But remember, always be respectful. If someone indicates they do not want their photo taken, we smile and move on." The group disperses into the crowd. Elena walks with Arthur. Arthur is having a little trouble walking on the uneven stones, so Elena offers him her arm. He thanks her and says, "You know, I have lived in this city for 40 years, but I have never looked at the market like this before." Elena smiles and says, "That is the magic of photography, Arthur. It forces you to slow down." Mia, the student with the smartphone, is feeling bold. She approaches a flower stall where a woman is arranging a massive bouquet of sunflowers. The yellow petals look brilliant against the blue sky. Mia takes a photo. Then she lowers her phone and speaks to the woman. She says, "Excuse me, your flowers are beautiful. I just took a photo. Would you like to see it?" The woman smiles and wipes her hands on her apron. She looks at the screen and says, "Wow, you made them look like a painting." Mia beams with pride. This is a crucial moment for Mia. She used her English and her art to connect with a stranger. Sarah watches this from a distance and gives Mia a thumbs up. Suddenly, the weather decides to change. The blue sky is quickly covered by dark gray clouds. A cold wind sweeps through the market square, blowing napkins off the cafe tables. Sophie looks up and realizes they need to move. She calls out to the group, "Okay, everyone, it looks like rain is coming. Let's head to our final destination before we get soaked." The group gathers quickly. They are all laughing, energized by the sudden shift in weather. They start walking briskly towards the street where Julian's cafe is located. The first drops of rain start to fall. They are big, heavy drops. People open umbrellas and pull up hoods. It becomes a bit of a race. They hurry down the street, their footsteps echoing on the pavement. They turn the corner and see the warm, inviting glow of the rusty anchor. The sign is swinging slightly in the wind. Julian is waiting for them. He is standing by the door, holding it open. He sees the group running towards him and calls out, "Come in! Come in! The sanctuary is open!" The group rushes inside one by one. The transition from the cold, wet street to the warm, coffee-scented air of the cafe is immediate and comforting. Everyone shakes off their coats and wipes their glasses. The cafe is filled with the sound of relief and laughter. Julian guides them to the back of the room where he has pushed several tables together to make one long community table. On the table, there are plates of the cinnamon cookies he promised. There are also jugs of water and small vases of flowers. It looks like a celebration. The participants sit down, their cheeks flushed pink from the wind. Sophie stands at the head of the table, her hair a little messy from the rain, but she looks happy. She says, "We made it. You were all amazing out there. Thank you for being such good sports about the rain." Everyone claps and cheers. Julian and his assistant start moving around the table, taking drink orders. This time, the orders are varied: hot chocolates, cappuccinos, herbal teas, and iced lattes. Listening to the orders is a good practice. One person says, "Could I have a latte with oat milk, please?" Another says, "Just a black coffee for me, thank you." Once everyone has a drink in their hand, the atmosphere settles down into a cozy hum. Sophie suggests that they share their photos. Since not everyone has a professional camera, they pass around phones and cameras. Arthur hands his heavy film camera to the young man next to him. He explains, "I cannot show you the pictures yet, because I have to develop the film in a dark room, but I can show you how I framed the shot." He looks through the viewfinder and describes what he saw. The young man listens intently. On the other side of the table, Mia is showing her sunflower photo to the couple. The woman says, "That is stunning. You have a really good eye for color." Mia blushes and says, "Thank you. I was really nervous to talk to the flower lady, but she was so nice." Elena is sitting next to Sarah, sipping her tea. She whispers to Sarah, "Look at them. They were strangers 2 hours ago, and now they are sharing cookies and stories." Sarah nods and whispers back, "It is incredible. We did this. We made this happen." They feel a shared sense of accomplishment. It is not just about the photos. It is about the community they built. Julian walks by and places a fresh plate of cookies on the table. He leans in and says to Elena, "Everyone looks so happy. You guys did a great job." Elena smiles up at him and says, "Thanks, Julian. The cafe is the perfect ending to the walk." As the conversation flows, Sophie notices that people are starting to swap contact information. The man who bought his camera yesterday is asking Arthur for advice on where to buy film. Mia is following the couple on Instagram. This is networking in its purest form. It is natural and driven by shared interest. Sophie realizes that her fear of teaching was unnecessary. She didn't need to be a strict professor. She just needed to be a guide. She stands up and taps her spoon against her glass to get everyone's attention. The room goes quiet again. Sophie says, "I just want to say one more thing. Photography is a journey. Today was just the start. Please keep taking photos, and please keep in touch with each other. We will definitely do this again." The group applauds loudly. Now, a surprise happens. Julian, who has been working behind the counter, dries his hands and walks over to the corner of the room where his guitar is resting on a stand. He picks it up and sits on a tall stool. The cafe falls silent. He strums a soft, gentle chord. He looks at the group and says, "Well, since we are all celebrating creativity today, I thought I would share a little bit of mine." He starts to play a beautiful, acoustic melody. It is a slow, folk-style song that fits the rainy afternoon perfectly. He does not sing, he just plays. The music weaves through the room, wrapping around everyone like a warm blanket. Everyone listens. Arthur closes his eyes, tapping his foot gently to the rhythm. Mia records a short video of Julian playing. Elena, Sarah, and Sophie look at each other. They do not need to say anything. Their eyes say it all. This moment, the rain outside, the warmth inside, the smell of coffee, the new friends, and the music, is a perfect memory. It is the kind of memory that makes all the struggle of learning a language or moving to a new city worth it. For 5 minutes, the only sound is the guitar and the rain. It is peaceful. It is complete. We have reached the conclusion of this chapter in our characters' lives. The music has faded, the cups are empty, and the afternoon is turning into evening. The group at the cafe begins to say their goodbyes. This is an important part of social interaction. The exit. It is how you leave a lasting positive impression. Let's listen to how they do it. Arthur is the first to leave. He puts on his tweed cap and stands up. He shakes Sophie's hand firmly. He says, "Thank you, my dear, for getting an old man out of the house. I haven't had this much fun in years." Sophie holds his hand with both of hers and says, "Thank you, Arthur. Your perspective was inspiring to all of us. Please come back and show us the photos when you develop them." Arthur nods and promises he will. He waves to the rest of the table and walks out the door, opening his umbrella with a snap. The young couple leaves next. They thank Sarah for the organization. They say to her, "Everything was so smooth." The name tags were a nice touch. Sarah feels validated in her efforts. She says, "I am glad you noticed. Drive safely home." Slowly, the cafe empties until it is just the original four friends: Julian, Sarah, Elena, and Sophie. The cafe is quiet again, except for the sound of the dishwasher running in the background. They are tired, but it is a good kind of tired. It is the fatigue of satisfaction. They move to a smaller table near the window to debrief. Julian brings them a fresh pot of tea to share. He sits down with them, resting his elbows on the table. He says, "Well, I think that was a smashing success." Smashing success is a great British English idiom meaning something went very, very well. Elena takes a sip of tea and says I was worried about the weather, but the rain actually made it cozy at the end. Sophie nods and adds yes, and the lighting in the market before the storm was dramatic. I think some people got really great shots. Sarah pulls out her notebook and starts writing. Elena asks, "What are you doing, Sarah?" Sarah laughs and says, "I am writing down lessons learned for next time." Note to self, bring more napkins if it rains. They all laugh. The pressure is off now. They can joke and relax. They start talking about their personal highlights of the day. Sophie says my highlight was seeing Mia talk to the flower seller. She was so shy at the beginning, but the camera gave her a shield, a way to be brave. Elena says my highlight was Arthur. He reminded me that you never stop learning. He was asking me questions about architecture that I had to really think about. Julian says my highlight was playing for you guys. I haven't played for an audience in a long time, even a small one. It felt good to break the ice. Sarah says, well, my highlight is right now, just sitting here with you three. This conversation shifts to the future. They realize that they have formed a strong team. They have different skills: marketing, architecture, photography, hospitality. But they share the same values. They value community, creativity, and kindness. Sophie looks at the group and asks, "So, what is next? Do we do another walk next month?" Elena nods enthusiastic. She says, "Definitely. Maybe next time we can explore the Riverside district. There are beautiful bridges there." Sarah taps her pen on the table and adds, "And maybe we can partner with a local print shop to print out everyone's best photo for a mini exhibition here in the cafe." Julian loves this idea. He says, "That is brilliant. We can hang the photos on the brick wall over there. We can call it The City Through Our Eyes." They spend the next 30 minutes brainstorming ideas for the exhibition. They talk about frames, lighting, and invitations. The energy at the table is electric. They are not just friends hanging out. They are partners creating something meaningful for their community. They are building a legacy. As night falls completely, the rain stops again. The streetlights reflect on the wet pavement, turning the city into a scene from a movie. It is time to go home. They stand up and gather their belongings. Sophie packs her camera bag. Elena puts on her coat. Sarah puts her notebook away. Julian walks them to the door. He gives each of them a small bag of coffee beans as a parting gift. He says a little fuel for the next planning meeting. They thank him and step outside. The air is fresh and cold. They stand on the sidewalk for a moment. Sophie looks at Elena and Sarah and says, "Thank you for helping me. I really couldn't have done this alone." Elena smiles and says, "We know, and we wouldn't have wanted to miss it." Sarah adds, "See you all on Monday?" They agree. "See you Monday." They walk away in their separate directions, just like they did in the first story. But something is different now. The city does not feel so big or lonely anymore. It feels like a web of connections, and they are right in the center of it. Sophie walks towards the subway. She feels the weight of her camera bag, but it doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels like a tool for connection. She takes out her phone and looks at the group selfie they took at the cafe. Everyone is smiling, holding their mugs. She posts it to her social media with the caption, "Progress, not perfection. A beautiful day with beautiful people." And that, my friends, is where we leave our characters for now. They have grown so much since we first met them. They have overcome nervousness, solved problems, and built a community. And you have been there for every step of the way. By listening to these parts, you have practiced thousands of words of continuous English. You have exposed your brain to vocabulary about travel, business, home repair, photography, and friendship. You should be very proud of yourself. Remember, language learning is exactly like the photography walk we described today. Sometimes it is sunny and easy. Sometimes it rains, and you have to run for cover. Sometimes you feel shy, like Mia. Sometimes you feel experienced, like Arthur. But the most important thing is that you keep showing up. You keep walking. You keep listening. And you keep trying. Progress happens slowly, often without you noticing it, until one day you look back and realize how far you have come. I hope these stories have helped you relax and enjoy your English practice. If you want to continue improving, my advice for you this week is simple. Find your cafe. Find a place, real or online, where you feel safe to practice, where you can make mistakes, and where you can connect with others. If you enjoyed this series and want to see more long-form storytelling, please let me know in the comments. Tell me, if you went on the photography walk, what would you take a picture of? A building, a flower, or a person? I would love to read your answers. Thank you for spending your time with me, Alex, here on English in Fluency. Keep listening, keep smiling, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.